And hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Shabbat Shalom. Great to be with you again. What an honor to be with you. It's just so special that we have this opportunity together. Thank you so much for being here. This is a special week in the modern Jewish calendar. This week we are celebrating, commemorating 2 days that are very much connected to our homeland. Yesterday was Yom HaZikaron, Remembrance Day, Memorial Day, the day in which we remembered all the soldiers and all the those that sacrificed themselves, their lives, to defend, to protect the state of Israel. And today we are celebrating Israel's Independence Day. You know, in many ways, Israel's Independence Day isn't just about those that are living in the state of Israel. The country, our homeland, regardless of where you are and where you live, doesn't matter where you pay taxes, doesn't matter where the address is after your name. Every one of us has a piece of that land. And when we're living in a time, regardless of one's own personal backgrounds, regardless of one's own personal connection, the end of the day, my grandparents, when they were my age, never dreamed of a time in which we had the state of Israel the way we have it today. My great-grandparents, our great-grandparents, 5, 6, 7 generations ago, no one could have ever dreamed of what Israel looks like today. No one could have dreamed of the idea that wherever you are in the country, you're just a plane ride away. No one could have dreamed of Hakotel Biadenu. No one could have dreamed of the streets of Israel being spoken with kids in Hebrew running on playgrounds. Forget the leadership in technology and in science, and forget all that. Just to have Jews back in the country, to see the modern prophecy that has been written in our Torah, the land will wait for you, to watch the land blossom again. This isn't just a political holiday. This is a moment to appreciate the gift that Hashem, God, has given us. The world is just a manifestation of God's will, and God's hand guides it. And today we have a moment where we get to sit back and just for a second appreciate the fact that we get to live in a world where we take it even for granted. God has given us back our homeland and all of its greatness. So today we're going to talk about Israel and all the different facets, even if you're living in the diaspora. We're going to meet people that are involved in different aspects of Israel and supporting it, and Aliyah, and people that have made Aliyah. We're going to watch videos. We're going to have a night where we get to appreciate the greatness of the land that has been the land that our forefathers have walked on, the land that we were exiled from for thousands of years, and that we're returning to every day more and more. The prophecy as it unfolds before our eyes, the joy of what it's like to be around and to see what we see and to appreciate that which we appreciate. Of course, today's show is sponsored as a program of the Carl Enoch Goldman Center. We thank you, Jay Goldman, for your constant support, and we thank you so much. And we're honored to be a part of the Carl Enoch Goldman Center of Jewish Values. And we thank you so much for your constant support. And we're going to begin the show with a video. You know, as you know, this video means a lot, and you'll see because there's a concept that we've been saying for years, for generations, of Libi b'Mizrach. My heart is in the East. That concept really is a message that wherever you are in the world, your heart belongs to Jerusalem. Wherever we are, whatever we do, there's a piece in every Jew's heart that belongs in Jerusalem. Check out this wonderful video from Aish Torah about our hearts being in Israel.
בעוד שהגודל זה שכאן יושב השכינה.
A place where everyone can come and, unite.
Le symbole en fait du mur, c'est le rassemblement de la foi de tous les gens dans le monde. A focal point.
It encapsulates everything that we stand for as Jews.
Le Kotel est encore là, comme nous, tout ce qui nous est arrivé avec tous les génocides, on est encore là.
If those walls can talk, they talk about shared pain and anguish and successes of 3,500 years. That's the Kotel.
In the year 832 BCE, in the place where Abraham and Isaac walked, where Jacob dreamed of the angels on the ladder, where Judaism says the physical world and spiritual world meet, the people of Israel, under the leadership of King Solomon, built Jerusalem and the temple. In ancient times, the temple was considered a rare and outstanding architectural feat. This site attracted people from all over the known world. In the midst of a pagan culture of idol worship and human sacrifice, the Jews in Israel introduced a new spiritual reality. The temple stood for justice, honesty, brotherhood, loving kindness, and forgiveness. Over the centuries, sovereignty over Jerusalem passed from the Jews to Babylonians, Greeks, Romans, Christians, and Muslims. The temple was destroyed twice, leaving only the western wall as a remnant and memorial of its glorious past. Finally, after 2,000 years of exile, years of suffering, hardships, and yearning, Jerusalem returned to Jewish sovereignty.
אני יורד ברגע זה אני יורד במדרגות אל הכותל. אינני אדם דתי, מעולם לא הייתי, אבל זהו הכותל, ואני נוגע באבני הכותל המערבי.
Our faith and what we believe in.
This land that everyone has been waiting so long for.
Nous formons une chaîne, chaque juif est un maillon, et ensemble on peut faire quelque chose.
יום שישי היינו שבת פה בהר הזיתים עם גדוד של צוערים מבה"ד 1, בית ספר לקצינים של צה"ל, וביום שישי ככה שעות אחר הצהריים מאוחרות ירדנו לקראת שבת לכותל, לקבלת שבת, קצת ריקוד, עשינו מעגל ענק על כל הרחבה, 284 צוערים, מפקצים, מ"פים, כל הגדוד. רוקדים ככה עם ישראל חי, מעגל ענק ענק. אז מתכווצים פנימה, עוד ככה כמה שירים, שבחי ירושלים, כל העולם כולו. שרים, 20 דקות רוקדים, ואז ככה מי שרצה נשאר לתפילה, מי שרצה הלך לסיור. צאי שבת שעשינו סיכום של כל השבת. קמו צוערים, סיכמו כל אחד מהזווית שלו. כמעט אחרון קם צוער, אמר, שבוע טוב, לי קוראים עווד, אני דרוזי מכפר ירכא שבגליל, בגדוד חרב. ואני, שאלו אותי כל הזמן החבר'ה מהצוות, איך אתה מרגיש פה שבת של יהודים, בכל זאת, ירושלים, מה? ולא עניתי לכם. עכשיו אני אענה לכם. פה לפני כולם. זה היה השבת הכי מדהימה בחיים שלי. אבל הרגע הכי מדהים בשבת היה לראות אתכם רוקדים בכותל. עמדתי, הסתכלתי. ראיתי אתכם דתיים, חילונים, ספרדים, אשכנזים, עולים חדשים, ותיקים, ימין, שמאל, חרדים שהצטרפו למעגל ככה מהמתפללים. פתאום הבנתי מה סוד הכוח שלכם. כשאתם ביחד, אף אחד לא יכול לדעת. ואת הכוח הזה אתם מלקים מפה. מירושלים, מהכותל.
thousands of years, Jews yearned for the rebuilding of Jerusalem. During centuries in exile, they prayed, facing the direction of the Western Wall. They mourned and longed to witness its rebuilding. "My heart is in the east, and I am in the far west," wrote Rabbi Yehuda Halevi, describing the Jewish nation's feelings of longing for the holy city. And yet, with a Jerusalem that appears to be rebuilt, why still does the Jewish nation feel so empty? What is there left to build? And what is there left to hope for? The stones of the Western Wall, as powerful as they are just stones. The secret is what is behind the stones, the nexus between the physical world and the spiritual world. 3,000 years of history, the sacrifices of a nation, and the hope for the future of the Jewish people, that we will continue to build, to grow, and to connect with the Almighty.
And we thank Geshe Torah for that very inspiring piece. I don't know about you, but as I see it, I want to get there. I want to get there so badly. I think if there's ever been a year to appreciate Israel more, it's this one. You know, as soon as they closed the gates to the diaspora community, we were like, wait a second. That's not how it works. You don't close your gates. That's not how it works. It only increases the longing. And people from all over the world feel that. Not only do they feel that in terms of tourists and visitors, but they feel it in actually making decisions to move to Israel. This is part of the prophecy of God bringing back the nations. Kibbutz Golios, it's called in Hebrew. And you're watching it across the world. Countries that have had Jews in them for generations are now basically shut down. And Jews are making aliyah in different ways, some forced, some voluntarily, and this is all things that we pray about. Hanidachim that are coming from all over, from Mitzrayim, from Ashur, from countries that are pushing us out, for countries of wealth that we're leaving voluntarily. This is all part of how we're seeing the world, and we're seeing it today. We have a great opportunity today to speak to a man named Mark Rosenberg. Mark works for an organization called Nefesh B'Nefesh, which is the largest organization for diaspora aliyah. It was started by a man named Josh Fass. He's the founding director of Nefesh B'Nefesh. Now, he was supposed to be in the show, but because of a little injury that, thank God, he's doing better for him, he wasn't able to make it. But before we go to Mark, I want to play you a quick video about Mr. Josh Fass. Check this out.
A cousin of mine was standing at a bus stop. It was just populated by kids waiting for a school bus. A Hamas suicide bomber detonated a suicide bomb and killed my cousin and a friend of his. The overwhelming emotion that I had was to stand in his stead. I just had this visceral, this emotional, intense feeling of moving with my family to Israel, to continue a life that was snuffed, and to fight terrorism and to fight negativity with some sense of hope and some sense of optimism. And when I shared the idea with others, I heard from many people that we also want to move to Israel, but the bureaucracy is supposed to be nightmarish, but we don't have the funding to make the move. And I said, this is ridiculous. You know that I want to move to Israel, but there are thousands of others who want to go, and we should just do something. We should start something. We should create something to remove all these obstacles, to create this whole wave of individuals who want to move to Israel. So we started and founded Nefesh B'Nefesh. Since founding the organization, we brought over 18,000 people.
It's a lifelong dream.
We've been thinking about this for at least 10 years.
It's where I belong. It's where I want to be.
We've brought over 1,000 soldiers who are fighting in combat.
I had a friend who passed away, who died in Lebanon, and I needed to take his spot. So I wanted to serve the army and serve Israel in the best way I knew I could, and that's why I'm here today.
We have over 12,000 people who are actively in the pipeline needing and seeking facilitation of their aliyah. You walk through the aisles of the plane and you see an 85-year-old with a number from Auschwitz sitting next to an 8-year-old making aliyah, sharing that dream. You'll have a kid coming off the plane fulfilling a dream that his grandparent or great-grandparent could never have imagined. You have 30 soldiers coming off a plane and they're going straight to defend this country. You have doctors coming off the plane and they're going to save and to heal and to treat. You have teachers coming off the plane and they're coming to educate. Israel needs new blood, creativity, entrepreneurship, idealism, Zionism, demography, helping with education, with medicine. What is the key solution for all these issues? And that's Aliyah, and that's moving to Israel, bringing individuals from the diaspora, individuals who are not running from something, but running to something, and coming to Israel.
And we thank Rabbi Fass for all that he does, all that he did, all that he does, and all that he will do for the Jewish people. And I want to introduce his colleague, Mr. Mark Rosenberg, who's with us right now. Mark is the Vice President of Diaspora Partnerships at Nefesh B'Nefesh. He is an experienced educator, collaborates with several educational institutions in Jerusalem. He's originally from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, but he lives now with Jerusalem with his wife and 5 children. Check out this interview that I had earlier this week with Mark Rosenberg. So Nefesh B'Nefesh is one of the most, I guess, prominent organizations in Israel for sure, across the world. It is, I guess, at this point, synonymous with making Aliyah. So give us a sense of some of the numbers, just, I guess, round numbers of, what's going on in the world of Aliyah, what was like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe more recently, just so that we can get a sense of what's taking place around the world.
So when Nefesh B'Nefesh came on the scene in 2001, it really was recognizing not only were there obstacles to making Aliyah, but let's see if we can see an impact on that. And when Rabbi Josh Fass, with the help of Tony Gelbart, started Nefesh B'Nefesh, one of the first things they noticed, there was a dissonance between the amount of people applying to make Aliyah and the amount of people coming. So I said there's about 1,500 people coming in the year 2000, a little under that, but yet there was like 8,000 applications coming in. So wow. The organization was focused on removing those obstacles. And in a typical year now, we have almost, I'd say pre-corona, about almost 4,000 North American Jews making Aliyah. And the numbers have been really unprecedented over the past 10 months. And we're looking to see almost a 15 to 20% increase this summer. The building blocks of this organization for over 19 years have been give every Jew, wherever they are, the proper expectations and resources to make sure the Aliyah is successful. And we're proud to say that over 90% of our Olim are still living in Israel over 3 years later, and therefore the impact is that they're staying and they're also bringing other family members when they come with them.
Being a Jew in Israel, especially today, is something that is not only spiritually pleasing, but physically pleasing. Can you share with us maybe the evolution of that and how making Aliyah now is maybe different in terms of its challenges than it presented maybe 10 years ago, and how the country has really advanced exponentially so that somebody who's a diaspora Jew that picked up his head 5 years ago, that's not the same Israel. The Israel is not the same Israel because Israel doesn't operate at the same clip as a host country, right? Israel develops at a different speed. Are you seeing that in terms of people that are making Aliyah and their experiences? Israel
has matured, and the quality of life and the comforts that people have made the decision-making process for people thinking about Aliyah much more different. We see it amongst families, as you mentioned, people who are established in their careers, and they're not graduating college and putting all their luggage in a car, driving up the turnpike to say, I'm going to go, I'll go to Manhattan for a job. They're saying, listen, I've got young kids. What does it mean? And they're looking at the opportunities of the suburbs of around Modi'in and Efrat and Beit Shemesh as much as they're thinking about the suburbs when they're leaving Manhattan as equal opportunities. And we see that amongst people who suddenly, when they look at their options, and precisely in this pandemic, when people were frozen at home and they were thinking about, wow, I'm working from home, where else could I live? Israel has become a great a pleasant competitive option for people on the landscape of where they want to continue their life, continue the profession, and especially raise their children.
Amazing. What's it like in Israel with people coming back across the globe?
There are really just Moroccans and Russians and Ethiopians all around us, and everyone has their story to add to it. We have to really see this coming together as much more than diversity is even to say, because it really brings people together to see the sacrifice that they have made, whether it's serving in the army or the ultimate sacrifice, those who are no longer with us. But it's appreciation that we really are in this together. And I think part of that comes by the fact is that it's important not to objectify Israel. I think that's a mistake that people make. They treat Israel like an object, especially those strong defenders of Israel. We have to defend Israel. It's great. But within Israel, there's so many different people. And we really bring it together. And that allows us to really think about us as really connected. And when people make that leap and make that decision to come and join this, it's really remarkable. And I think for me professionally, one of my greatest experiences, we have a charter flight of Olim coming, and we've had 55 charters of Nefesh B'Nefesh is almost 20 years. We actually have one, please God, coming on April 25th from New York. And you walk down the aisle of this plane, and there are 250 people making Aliyah, different ages, different backgrounds, all across, and they're all facing one direction. Amazing. They're all facing towards Israel. Ugh. And you look around, their stories and the ages back, and it's I use the word humbling for me. It just reminds me of, first of all, my small part in making sure that the paperwork was together so that they can realize their dream. But there's something larger happening. And really, Israel is the greatest project of the Jewish people that we are working together to strengthen. And its influence is abundantly pouring over to Jews around the world. Their eyes are on Zion. And we're seeing that the infusion of that energy often comes from the Olim Chadashim, the people who are making Aliyah. They are going up, they are lifting the country up. And that's I think, the true gift that Olim bring to this country. They're bringing their customs. We're bringing our Amazon Prime with us to Israel and getting those delivered. Everyone's bringing something from their culture. Their foods are coming together. And we no longer have a certain staple type of food. It really brings all the different foods and peoples together in a greater sense of achdut and unity.
And we thank Mark for that really insightful conversation. It's amazing if you think about it, just what's happening. I don't want anyone to think that Aliyah is just it is personal, but we're not having a show on it because of someone's personal decision. Let's pull the lens back and see what's happening. See how the world is moving. See how the world is changing. See what's happening around the world and how the Kibbutz Goliath's prophecy is coming true in our own lives. Check out this beautiful video that Nefesh B'Nefesh put out on one of their chartered flights that landed in Israel in one of the Aliyahs. Check this out.
Good morning and Mazal Tov to all the new Olim. Today we celebrate our 60th NBN Aliyah flight.
We welcome this morning 242 Olim from 23 U.S. states who have remarkably come home. Shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higiyanu l'zman hazeh. Today we celebrate the joy. We celebrate your homeland. We celebrate you coming home. We celebrate your resolve and your determination and your values and this historic, majestic moment. Mazal Tov.
We are happy to observe each one of you. You choose to say that the state of Israel is your home no matter where you lived in the past.
This week we celebrate 90 years to the existence of the Sochnut, and there could not have been a better gift than seeing this wonderful hall with so many Olim.
when we say V'shavu banim legvulam, this is what we pray for. You are returning home, and all Israelis welcome you to the state of Israel.
אתם מצטרפים לצה"ל, שהוא הצבא היחידי ששומר על עם ישראל, הצבא המוסרי ביותר בעולם. גם אם אתם נקראים חיילים בודדים, אתם לא בודדים. כולנו איתכם תמיד.
You're just beginning the journey for the rest of your lives. You'll build Israel, you'll build your lives with your family, your friends. You'll make new acquaintances. You're going to have an amazing life here. Welcome and welcome and welcome.
Our next guest is an incredible individual. Mr. Scott Feldman is the executive vice president of One Israel Fund, an American philanthropy that provides medical, security, and other humanitarian aid for those living in Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley, and the communities impacted by Israel's disengagement from Gaza in 2005. He has worked in the nonprofit world since 1990 and has previously worked as One Israel Fund's director of development. He was drawn to One Israel Fund by its mission to improve and protect the lives of those living on the front lines. He has appeared on Newsmax, Fox Nation, and I-24 News, and his work has been published in various news outlets. Check out this interview that I had with Mr. Scott Feldman. So tell us a little bit about what One Israel Fund is and what does it do?
Okay, so if you go back to around 1993, you'll remember the Oslo signing, which was the famous signing on the White House lawn, where Israel and what was really the Palestinian Authority, which was formerly the PLO, entered into an agreement whereby the Palestinian Arabs would have some amount of limited governorship. And the founder of our organization, who is Dr. Yechiel Leiter, who at the time was working in what was called the Yesha Council. Yesha is a Hebrew acronym for Yehuda, Shomron, and Gaza, or Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, the West Bank communities, was quite intelligent in seeing the future and where things were going to head, and saw that over time it was going to, the conversation was going to change to limited governorship, to giving away territory and creating a separate, what we believe would be a terrorist state in the middle of the heartland of Israel. Mm-hmm. So he created One Israel Fund to be a de facto fundraising entity in North America in order to provide humanitarian resources for the fledgling communities that were there. We felt that these areas were, worth investing in, and we set out to basically provide playgrounds, educational resources, medical facilities, and of course security equipment, preventive security equipment.
And today's Yom Ha'atzmaut.
Yep.
So as an individual who has been spending his life really gathering diaspora money and gathering diaspora support for Israel, why is today so important for the diaspora community?
It really is a modern day miracle.
Yeah.
That for our people to wander for 2,000 years without our own homeland, and to see the devastation that has taken place. And I know you just had a show devoted to, the Shoah last week, I guess, and how vulnerable we as a people are. And now, even especially today, with everything that we've seen around the globe, with the rise in anti-Semitism and how significant it's become, to know that we have that place, I think it's just as important to those of us living outside of Israel as it is to those who are living inside of Israel today. And it's an amazing thing when you think about it. It's 73 years. It's a pittance in world history. 73 years, and think about where we are today. Israel is a superpower in so many ways, from biotech to other high tech and agriculture and drip irrigation. And when you see Israel's now teaching Africa how to get more out of their crops to fight world hunger, and I mean it's a leader in so many different areas and in such a short amount of time. And I don't have to tell you, it's not the easiest of neighborhoods to grow up. So, with a tremendous amount of its own budget going to security, and yet all of the human capital that has come out of this country, it is nothing short of miraculous, and to see God's blessings.
And we run a trip to Israel through Momentum, and we take adult men to Israel. And I always, in every trip, invariably, and I hope it always continues, we get a number of these comments. Someone will come up to me or whoever and say, "Can I ask you a question?" I'll say, "Sure." They'll say, "Why do I feel like I've been here?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "I've never been to Israel before. I'm 52 years old. I grew up in the middle of America. I grew up in Cleveland or Los Angeles or Detroit or Florida. I've never been to Israel. This is my first trip. And I'm here. Why does it feel like I've been here before?"
There's a certain nuance to being there the first time, but then there's also just connecting to your entire history and it all comes alive. When you're walking on the same road that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob walked, you feel the connection that you'll never be able to explain it. But there is a connection for every Jew when you're in Israel. Every rock has a story there, and you do feel it.
Amazing. Well, Scott, thank you so much for what you do, and thank you for who you are, and thanks for shining your light on this world.
Charlie, you're the best, and you do this better than everybody, better than anybody. So it's such an honor to be here with you, and I'm so happy to be able to share with your audience.
Thank you.
Have a great Chag Sameach.
Amen. We thank Scott for his incredible partnership with the State of Israel and his dedication. It's amazing just how much he thinks 24/7 about the security of the Jews in every aspect of Israel. Israel's an amazing country on so many levels. And what it's really been doing for the past 73 years is defying the odds. Constantly. The Jewish people are defying the odds. One of the things that I hope that you're seeing on the show, and if you haven't, you got to go back to some of the early ones when we highlighted different peoples. And we keep on seeing diaspora communities and defying the odds. That's how we roll. We're defying odds. The Jewish nation defies odds. Check out this wonderful video about how Israel is defying the odds.
Israel is the 100th smallest country on the globe and has about 1/1000th of the world's population. It's only 70 years old. Smaller than New Jersey, surrounded by enemies, under constant threat of survival, and possesses few natural resources. And yet, Israel is the only country in history to have revived an unspoken language. Since its founding, Israel has won the second highest number of Nobel Prizes per capita. Although the Jewish people are only 0.2% of the world population, Jews have received 22% of Nobel Prizes, constituting an inexplicable 11,250% above the statistical probability. Israel is the only country that entered the 21st century with a net gain in its number of trees. Even more remarkable, in an area that's mainly desert. Over 90% of Israeli homes use solar energy for hot water, the highest percentage of any country. Israeli companies are building the largest solar energy production facility in the world. Israel operates the world's largest desalination plant and is the #1 country providing usable water from seawater. Israel's scientific research institutions are ranked 3rd in the world and are ranked 2 in space sciences. Israel leads the world in medical patents and has revolutionized modern medicine. Oramed is changing the diabetes therapeutic paradigm by delivering insulin in a pill. Rewalk's exoskeleton allows paraplegics to walk. Orcam allows blind people to virtually see. Israel has more patents registered in the US than Russia, India, and China combined, who have 300 times Israel's population. Israel's innovations have improved the way we work, print, drive, read, eat, drink, talk, exercise, and even play. Israel is the only liberal democracy in the Middle East, and its third largest party is often the Arab Party. Israel has provided humanitarian aid and rescue services to over 140 countries, even to some that refuse to recognize it, like Syria and Lebanon. Israel is the third most educated country in the world, according to the OECD. Israel has the world's second highest number of new books per capita. Israel has the third highest rate of entrepreneurship among women in the world. And in 1969, Israel elected Golda Meir, the second female head of state in modern history. In proportion to its population, Israel has the largest number of high-tech startup companies in the world. In absolute numbers, Israel has more startups than any other country except the US and China. Israel is the only country whose indigenous population returned to its native land after 2,000 years of forced exile. There are 26 official Muslim states in the world and 18 official Christian states, but there is only one Jewish state. Israel, a small place making a big difference.
My next guest, Donnie Fine, has a background in accounting and eventually pursued his passion in real estate. He started out as a fundraiser for investments in Tama 38 projects in Israel, working closely with developers and investors. He soon realized the necessity for agents with connections to developers and their finger on the pulse of new developments to what's going on in Israel today. Donnie has a strong passion for helping people across the world, including people in Israel, find their ideal home. And the Holy Land, an individual who grew up in America, made Aliyah as well. Check out this interview with Donnie Fine. So, Donnie, I mean, I know you, for full disclosure, since I was a young child, we went to elementary school together. When did you make Aliyah?
So I made Aliyah 12 years ago, August 2009. I'm here with my wife, my beautiful wife, and 4 boys. My boys were ages 9, 7, 4, and 5 months when we came here.
And you ended up in Ramat Beit Shemesh.
Yeah, we came straight to Ramat Beit Shemesh. It's a nice Anglo community. Coming to Ramat Beit Shemesh, where there's a large Anglo community, you have a lot of amenities, shopping. You go into the store, and generally, even if they're Israeli, the person helping you is Israeli. They have some level of English, and it makes it a lot easier to come here. However, sure. I will tell you. Sorry, I just will tell you that shortly after we made Aliyah and we went to the Gush, more up north, and we saw all the mountains and the hills. I had a tear in my eye, and I said to my wife, "I just want you to know, when I said I wanted to make Aliyah, that's what I had in mind."
This is where I wanted to go. This is where I wanted to go.
But you know what? 12 years later, I'm so happy to be here.
It's great. Share with us, if you can, what are you seeing? Today is Yom HaAtzmaut. Today is a day of Israel. We're recognizing and remembering, Israel Independence Day. And so, from your perspective, what have you seen in terms of its growth over the past decade? How has Israel changed? How has it developed? What has been your experience in sort of living in that development over these past 12 years?
So I think when I first came to Israel, and I think the last 10 years in Israel has been a dramatic change. I mean, Israel's a young country to begin with. In the last 10 years, it's really become a modern day country. We're a democracy. We're really a first world country. Every technology, every amenity that you could possibly think of, you can get here. You'll pay a little bit more for it, but because one of the reasons is the taxes, and we don't have the buying power like America does. But there's a lot of opportunity here in terms of jobs, in terms of technology. Just even it used to be when I first got here, you drive on the road to Jerusalem, every car was like, it seemed like it's 20, 30 years old. The cars were jalopies. Now you're driving, everybody has a new car. You could lease a car. There's been a lot of change in the real estate market itself. A lot of opportunity here. It's gone are the days where there's no what's the word I'm looking for? There's no control over what's going on. There are regulations in place to protect people. It's a different place than it was even just 10, 12 years ago.
And where do you see it going? What do you think the next 10 years look like as someone living there from that perspective?
it's just going to keep on growing and just becoming a massive powerhouse. You know, recent events, the Abraham Accords, for example, its partnerships with our neighbors have made this country into a real powerhouse in the Middle East, but not just in the Middle East, in the entire world. I think this past year through Corona, the way Israel has handled the whole situation, that we've really proven ourselves that we can get things done in a professional and organized manner. And I think that's going to continue and have an impact on the rest of the world.
So I know that you're involved in real estate. Tell me a little bit about the real estate market for those that are just interested in this stuff. Like, where do you see it going, and what does it look like there?
The real estate market here is going up. It's been going up. I could tell you in Ramat Beit Shemesh alone, over the last 10 years, prices have doubled. Where I'm not even kidding you, when I took a pilot trip a year before I made Aliyah, and we saw a house here for, I think it was 950,000 shekels. Let's just say $250,000. That house is easily now worth 3.5 million shekel. So the prices have gone up. They're continuing to go up. There's not a lot of inventory out there, but if you find the right location and the right property, there's a lot of opportunity here.
Amazing. How do people reach you? I know that you're involved in real estate. How do they reach you if they want to find out more?
WhatsApp, email. There's a lot of LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been an incredible tool through Corona, where gone are now it's coming back a little bit, but now, we can meet face to face. Soon we'll be able to. Actually, it's funny. I saw you in February, literally right before Corona. I took a trip and I met you, and we haven't seen each other in a while, and it was so good to see you. And it's like I came to Israel and like that was it. I turned around like, whoa, the whole world has changed before my eyes. It was I was like getting over jet lag, and it was crazy. So thanks to LinkedIn, it made the world a lot smaller. So if anybody wants to reach me, they can go to LinkedIn and find me, and we can connect, and I'm happy to help people.
Donnie, thanks so much for joining us on the show. Continue doing what you're doing and shining your light on this world.
Thank you very much. You guys do an incredible job yourself. Thank you very much, and enjoy your day.
Israel is not only our spiritual homeland, it is a place that is physically, aesthetically breathtaking. The country is beautiful in all aspects. God promised it to us. Measures of beauty that was only found in the state of Israel, in our homeland. Check out this beautiful video of some of the most breathtaking photos of the state of Israel. We thank you so much for joining us on tonight's show. Tonight's show means so much, not to us individually, but to us as a nation. We're blessed, like I said earlier, to be alive during this period of time. It's not without challenge, but the blessing that God has bestowed on us, the blessings that he shows us throughout the entire world, but also and especially in Eretz Yisrael, in the state of Israel, in the land of Israel. Hashem is constantly watching it, and he's growing it, and he's developing it. He's enabling it to defy odds. He's bringing people from all over the world back. He is fulfilling the promises that he's made to us thousands of years ago, and it's taking place right now. And today is a day, again, regardless of your background and your relationship and your connection, it's just today is a day to just, for a moment, and every day is, but every day we're busy. So let's just do it today. To just stop and say thank you, to appreciate what we have, to appreciate the gifts that God has given us, the land that he has given us, for it is a great land. And really that's what Shabbat's all about. Shabbat is a time to sit back and appreciate the land that God gave us. We are blessing Hashem. Vayechulu hashamayim va'aretz. God finished the heavens and the earth. We have the opportunity to appreciate all that God created. And that's what today's about. Appreciating what we have in our lives, what we have today. Because whether you live there or not, Israel, and especially Jerusalem, is in our hearts always. And so, for today, let's take a moment, regardless of where we are and where we live, regardless of what our political stance is, religious, forget that stuff. Just for a moment, let's take a moment and appreciate what we have, the gifts that God gave us, the land that he has given us and will continue to give us, the world, and just how it's all proving his word to be true. That's what Shabbat is. Us standing up and saying God's word is true. You see, Shabbat was the beginning. And every day afterwards is just the revelation of that one testimony that we've always said was true. When you take Israel and just all of that's what's taking place, and you look at it from the lens of Shabbat, you see that it's all just God's kind, loving, benevolent hand guiding the world to greater and greater perfection. So on behalf of me and mine too and yours, I want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Man, do I hope and pray that next week we get to do this in Jerusalem. But at least we get to appreciate it a little bit more today than yesterday. I wish you a peaceful, thoughtful, appreciative Shabbat, no matter where you are in the world. And I hope and I pray that we get to see a time where all the prophecies come true. We get to dance and rejoice together in Israel. Shabbat Shalom. Have a good Shabbos. With God's help, we can't wait to see you next week.
אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל. היא מדינת ישראל.
בארץ ישראל קם העם היהודי. החלוצים מעפילים ומגינים הפריחו נשמות. שפתם העברית, בנו כפרים וערים והקימו יישוב גדל. על אף כל קושי, מניעה וסכנה, הם לא פסקו לתבוע את זכותם בחיי כבוד, חירות ועמל ישרים במולדת עמם. לפיכך נתכנסנו ומכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל, היא מדינת ישראל. או מדינת ישראל תהא פתוחה לעלייה, ומושתתה על יסודות החירות, הצדק והשלום.